Alright, so Tarkov just released the DLSS update, so I thought it'd be a good idea to go ahead and actually test it out and see how it performs with different setups, because I don't think for majority of people it will actually be that helpful, but for a small minority it will definitely help. So yeah, let's go ahead and test it out. And we're doing an offline raid with just scavs on customs. Alright, I'll sit here and I'm going to go ahead and talk about the specs. We're running an RTX 3080 for this part of the video with a Ryzen 5900X, 64GB of RAM running at 3200 MHz, and yeah, this will be, I think for this type of system, DLSS isn't going to affect you at all. Unless you're playing at max settings 4K, and at that point it might actually be helpful. But playing at 1080p or even 1440p, probably not going to help you. Start with 1080p, apply, and these are the settings I'm playing at. The scav count is the same as online, but there's no other players with me. So if you have more players, the FPS will be affected and it'll be even lower. So in a full lobby, I usually get around like 85 to 95 FPS, and if it's fully empty, I'm in the 120s, 130s, even in the 140s at times. Me turning on DLSS will not do anything at all. Set it to quality, and our performance is lower. We're getting 106 FPS. The quality looks decent, but the gun looks more blurry, I think. It just makes the quality worse. Let's go ahead and bring it up to 1440p, so we use up more of our GPU. If you're playing at 1440p with a 3080, it's obviously not going to be, like helping us at all. But if you're using an RTX 2060 or like a lower end RTX card now, you might actually be, it will definitely be helping you out. I guess we'll see later in the video when I try it out. Yeah, we dropped our GPU usage back down to 40%, so the same as 1080p, and instead of 60%, so we gained 20% extra headroom on that GPU, which we don't really need. But now we're playing at 4K, and we're actually finally GPU bound with a 3080. So GPU sitting at 95%. So at this point we lost about 25 FPS around there because we are GPU bound now. So if we go ahead and enable DLSS, this should give us our FPS back that we lost for playing at 4K. We'll bring us back up to 104 FPS, which is around the FPS that we had before, and our GPU usage is sitting around 80% now instead of being maxed out. And looking at the quality at 4K, it looks the same as native. I can't tell the difference between 4K native and 4K DLSS set to quality. Alright, looking at the CPU now at 4K DLSS, as you can see, Core 11, Core 12 is being used up. It's very jumpy. Sometimes it goes up to 60%, sometimes it drops down to 20%, but CPU is not being fully utilized either. GPU is sitting around 30% since I think it reset itself to 1440p. Alright, let's go ahead and try this out on a more ideal setup with the RTX 3050, which is the weakest card that supports DLSS. And let's go ahead and do online raids and offline raids and just see how it performs. So now we're running the game with an RTX 3050, which is the weakest card that supports DLSS, and a Ryzen 3700X, which is a mid-range CPU. And we're going to be running the game off the same settings as we had before. 1080p, mix between quality and performance. And let's see how it runs. Alright, so as you can see, GPU is being fully maxed out, sitting at 97%, 95%, and we're getting 104 FPS. This is an offline raid again, but the scav count is the same as online, just to have a control test without any PMCs interfering with our performance. And in this case, we will definitely be gaining FPS with the use of DLSS, since our GPU is actually being fully utilized. Even with a 3050, we didn't really see too much of an improvement. Obviously, this depends on your CPU. If you got a newer CPU, then you'll be having a bigger improvement in your performance. So if you're running an RTX 3050 with a mid-range CPU, DLSS isn't going to be helping you out either. At 1080p anyway. At 1440p and 4K, it'll probably be a difference. Now we're actually playing the game at 1440p. GPU is maxed out fully. FPS is dropping to the 60s. So if you're playing 1440p with a 3050, you can definitely take advantage of DLSS. Same with the 2060. If you're using 2060 and you want to play at max settings or higher settings, this will definitely work. Don't know about the 2070, but I'm sure it'll be all in the same range. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at 1440p with DLSS set to quality. And it looks like we're sitting in the 80s now, so we gained around 20 FPS. GPU is sitting around 85% usage, which means if you've got a more powerful CPU, you still got a 20% extra headroom on your GPU, which means we'll get more FPS from DLSS. Alright, now we're playing the game at 4K. This is not a 4K card, obviously. This is a 1080p card. But pushing the game to 4K, we're getting 30 FPS. GPU is fully maxed out. At this point, we can probably use DLSS on quality or balanced. Either of those two will probably get really good FPS. So pushing up the quality, that's kind of disappointing. I was expecting like 50 FPS, but 60 FPS, but that's right. 46 FPS. And the quality at 4K looks pretty much at native if you're using quality DLSS. And at balance, it still looks very good, close to native, and we gained only an additional like 6-7 FPS as well. That's pretty bad. The jump between quality and balance is very low, it seems like. Using performance, 60 FPS, there we go. And we're on the low range of 60, so if you get into a more intensive scene with a bunch of grenades or smoke bombs going off, you will dip into the 50s like we are right now. But either way, this is not a 4K card anyway. So most people aren't gonna be using it for 4K gaming, but if you are, then DLSS will definitely be helping you out. Alright, now we're into an actual online raid and on customs as well. 1080p, same settings as before. You're getting 101 FPS, so very similar to our offline raid with scavs. As you can see, our GPU is fully maxed out. CPU is sitting in the 50% usage mark, which is pretty good. I don't have any sound, by the way, so if someone sneaks up on me and kills me, then it's not my fault. And FPS seems to range from the 90s to the low 100s. Pretty decent. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and enable DLSS just to see how it performs. Put it up to quality. The image quality definitely does degrade, even at 1080p and at 1440p. It does look way better at 4K. 4K looks pretty much the same as native with DLSS, but 1080p and at 1440p is a slight. The image quality just isn't as sharp or as good as it is a native. Alright, I think I'll wrap the video here, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. If you did, give it a like and subscribe. I highly appreciate it. See you next time.